All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is Tim McDonald coming to you with another episode of Advocacy at Work. And today I am honored to have Debbie Lundberg with me. How you doing, Debbie?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this because you're a donor and I am a transplant recipient. So we got it, even though you weren't my donor and the same organ, but we got a connection there. So before we get too far in, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your introduction here?
Sure, thanks, Tim. Really appreciate being included. And again, as you said, I'm Debbie Lundberg, and I'm a performance and mindset coach. I founded the company Presenting Powerfully nearly 20 years ago. We're about to celebrate 20 years on July 6th of 2026. So that's exciting. And as you mentioned, I'm a living kidney donor, and I also mentor and have mentored over 20 different people for organ transplant, organ donation, and just am really never expected that to be part of the bio, as you say, but as a speaker and a coach, I certainly love the idea of assisting people, and it was something I could do.
No, that is absolutely fantastic. And we'll jump into that a little bit more about how you got to that point. But before we do, I always like setting the stage just how you would define advocacy.
Advocacy is whatever you can do that can assist someone else, whether they know that you've done it or not. I associate advocacy a lot with kindness, and that may seem like a bit of a stretch, but the reality is I encourage people to be kindly direct and directly kind. And in a talk that I often get asked to give, I remind people that if you do something for someone and you expect something in return, that's like a business relationship. That's not really kindness. And if you expect people to give you accolades for it, that's a bit of showmanship. So advocacy that is kindness and comes from a kind place means you're doing it for the right reason. You want that to assist other people, and you don't have to get credit for it.
I absolutely love that. But yeah, and I really think that a lot of what you're saying is I'm a community manager by trade and done that for almost 2 decades now. And that's kind of what I say. It's like networking is more transactional and community is more about relationships. So I love the synergies there. But not to get too far off on that topic. But why don't you just take me back to the beginning and tell me what inspired you to actually become a living kidney donor and how did that decision take place?
It's an interesting dynamic in that I can take you back to when I was getting my driver's license and wanting to, at the time, you could simply sign on the back of your driver's license and you had to have a witness. And I thought it was interesting. My mom and my brother were at home or sitting at the table or something when I announced that I wanted to do this. And they really were surprised and fought me a bit on it, which is even stranger because my mom is a nurse. So it was a peculiar conversation at first because it still stays true today. A lot of people don't understand organ donation. And I'm not saying that I did at the time. I simply had that in my mind that, of course, that's what I would want to do. And so I was surprised I was met with a little bit of resistance. And I don't think it was that my brother and my mom were so opposed to it. It seemed really foreign, though. And so keep that in mind as I tell you that I was fortunate to be selected to be in the Tampa General Hospital white coat internship about 15 years ago, where they select some community leaders. You get paired with one of the doctors or the surgeons at the hospital for an evening event. And then the next day you go on rounds with them. You get a white coat with your name on it and scrubs. And I happen to get paired with the chief cardiologist. And now when I say this, I hope it's not offensive. They're his words, not mine. But if we go back 15 years, that was when electronic medical records were not commonplace. That was when they were coming in. And he said to me, Debbie, we've already done rounds. I'd already done some stints. We'd been in surgeries. We'd been in operations. We'd talked to families. I mean, it was an incredible day already. And he said, I've got to find something for you that's sexy for an hour? And I said, that's a strange thing to say. And we were laughing. And I said, what does a cardiologist think is sexy in a hospital? And he said, well, I want it to be really worthwhile with your time. And I told him, I said, this has all been worthwhile. But he said, would you want to see a lung transplant? And I said, sure. Now, when I was fortunate to get to do that, I mean, it's a really sad state that there was a tragedy, of course, but there was a 23-year-old woman who could only sleep at about an 18% incline for her life because of what had happened with her lungs. So twice while I was standing there, they put me, I'm only 5'2". They put me on a stool next to the operating table and I got to observe. And twice I asked if I could step down because I was really emotional. I just thought it was so incredible. And they'd interviewed me about it. And I said, those new lungs, when they took the old lungs out, they were small and dark. And when they brought this gift of life, they looked like angels' wings to me. They looked white. They looked big and beautiful. And all I know, Tim, is that must have planted the seed, because years later then, so from that time, it was almost 10 years later that I saw the need for donation and didn't realize how many people were unfortunately dying every day waiting for organ transplants. And when I did, I decided to go get tested, and then the pandemic hit. So I'll leave it there for a minute, and you may have some questions, but that's how I got to that place.
Well, I just love that. And I'm just kind of curious for people and for myself here. Like that white coat program. Can you just explain like what drove you to even want to get involved in that?
That was a selection. I didn't apply for it. It was an offer. They tend to reach out to people in the community who are very active, and I was grateful. And there were 17 of us, and so it's really about a community advocacy awareness, so that you understand, for those of us who get to go through it, that we can talk intelligently about the hospital, that we can see the work that goes on. And it's a teaching hospital. So it also mirrored a little bit of what they do with USF and their medical students. So that whole concept had gone dormant during COVID. I saw that one of my colleagues just got to do it. And I don't want to spoil something because I think you're going to have somebody else on the show at another time, but he and I were asked if we wanted to go through it again and do something with transplant, which would be really, really fun to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I know, because we talked before we are recording this, that your husband actually became a donor too. And I'm just kind of curious, when he decided to do it, and we might, I'm sure I'm going to have him on at another episode, but not to spoil too much, but just, can you explain from your perspective what that conversation actually looked like? And, were you supportive, terrified, or, somewhere, more complicated than that?
Really, it was quite simple, because I say he's the cutest copycat you'll ever meet. I mean, I'd gone through it. Now, if I give you a framing on my experience, I first went in to be tested in February of 2020. So when I got the phone call that I could move forward, it was March 6th or 7th of 2020. And Michael and I were in California golfing, which is one of our favorite things to do, seeing two of our favorite people in the world, my aunt and uncle. And so I was excited about it. And then by the time we flew back, almost everything started shutting down for COVID. So in that process, Tim, I was told, well, you don't have to go through with this if you don't want. And I said, but aren't people still going to die? I mean, it was considered elective, which I realize it's elective for the donor, but it's not really elective for the recipient, in that at certain stages, people really need that. So I went through it by myself, and Michael and I are what we're known as Team Lundberg, and we love that. We enjoy spending time together. We work separately, but we collaborate really well. We have a lot of fun together. So it was peculiar that in going through this intensive testing, Michael was never at one of the appointments, didn't meet any, my coordinator, the nurses, didn't go to the psychology appointment, didn't meet my surgeon. And for us, that part was strange, but we understood it was because of the pandemic. So even when I went to have the surgery, he had to drop me off outside of the hospital and couldn't even go inside. So that entire experience for him was distanced. And yet I was keeping him informed. And the only people who I told before a couple of weeks ahead of time were my aunt and uncle, because we're really close with them. Told my parents, my brother, and my running partner. My running partners, because we were doing 10,000 steps before sunrise throughout the entire pandemic. And I had to have 2 people sign that they would care for me if something went wrong during the transplant. So I told her, and then she drove to the hospital as well and took a picture before I went in so that Michael and I could have a picture together, even though we were all still distanced from one another. So I tell you that as that bit of background that's peculiar in ours. Now, my husband was really savvy and thoughtful and had gotten people to send him cards. And he got to my transplant coordinator, Candace, and she snuck all these cards into my room because nobody could visit me. So I had this whole box of just over 100 cards that I could open and feel comforted. Now, I was fortunate being in the shape I was in. I was only in the hospital. I was ready to go in about 22 hours. I was ready to leave, and then there was an emergency surgery. So I ended up there for about 28 hours. So to answer your question, how did I feel about Michael doing it? I felt very confident and comfortable. He never expressed that he wanted to do it until Tampa General Hospital asked me if I would come in and speak. That's what I do for a living as an author and a coach and a speaker, and speak to the surgical teams, the teams that were there. Now, this was all on Teams, the video side of it. So I said, could my husband please come? He'll be distanced, he'll wear a mask. So he was able to come to the room where we were projecting the talk. And Dr. Wong, who was the surgeon who I had, a wonderful, wonderful guy, Michael met him for the first time. And when he heard Dr. Wong speak about the statistics, it really clicked with Michael that, hey, if he said, I'm going to do it when I retire. Now that would be doing it in 10 or 15 years. So instead, when the pandemic kept us from still traveling a ton, I mean, I was flying to speak, but everybody in the room would have on masks and I would be the one on a stage. So Michael wasn't traveling for his work. So he contacted Tampa General Hospital and they said, oh, okay. And I mean, his process went very fast because he knew what was happening and was able to go in and do all the testing really quickly. So I had 100% confidence that it would go smoothly. And of course I'm nervous. I like to tell people, you can be nervous and not scared. You can be nervous and not fearful. I was nervous that I was having an organ removed. I was nervous that Michael was, but I wasn't fearful or scared that anything adverse would happen, or if it did, it would be taken care of. So I was proud of him. I mean, I still am.
That makes perfect sense. And I know I read this somewhere that you guys call yourselves one-beaners because you have one kidney each, which is very unusual for a couple to have both that. I'm curious, at what point does that shared sacrifice become a shared identity for you both? And is there a downside to that, or is it all upside?
Well, it's a wonderful way you phrase it. When does it become an identity? It was certainly not anything from a branding or intentional perspective we planned. And I do work with a lot of people on branding. So it's curious how often I end up speaking on it, or I work it into a talk or something. And even in the second TED Talk I was asked to do, I worked that in as part of it, as a portion of the talk. So we're definitely identify as 2 one-beaners, and we call ourselves the 2 one-beaner golfers, and so it happens pretty quickly. We are happily competitive, not in a negative way, but like we even posted on social media who wore the girdle best, and we had people vote on who wore it best when we were doing that. So pretty quickly we embraced it, and it's really surprising. Well, maybe it's not, but to us, there are not very many couples, especially not very many couples who donate, that both people do. Now, sometimes someone is able to donate to their spouse, which is a really special thing. And we have friends who did that. But there are very few people who donate as a couple, but also who they weren't friends or family members. So that side of it, I also didn't know about the chain that you could donate. And if it didn't go to the person who you were thinking it might go to, that you could trigger so many other people getting organs donated. I learned so much through it. So that part of our identity came pretty quickly, and it's subtle. And the upsides are, we certainly feel really good about the choice we made, and we like mentoring others. I think the only downsides is we could have known sooner, like you can't eat as much protein, and you can't take Advil and things like that, which are not life altering. But there are a lot of things to check afterwards to make sure that it's okay for one kidney. One of the huge upsides, though, is we got involved in what's called kidney donor athletes. And I was invited into that right away. Gosh, when I got involved, they might have had 120 or 150 members. Now they have over 1,000. They might have a few thousand. It is a spectacular organization where you can go in groups or have Zoom meetings and talk about the challenges, how you're feeling about your relationship with the recipient. Or right now there's a thread about people who've never met their recipient. And yet it's all of us who do sports. There are donor Olympics, so to speak. I mean, there are these games that are out there, transplant games, not Olympics. I got to run with the Olympic torch, so sometimes I think everything's an Olympics. But that's something that we will likely do in the future. So there's a lot of upside, and there's this hidden community. Now, it's interesting, a lot of people having Michael's kidney recipient, like we say, they weren't our kidneys, we just happened to house them for a few decades. But that kidney that was meant for the person who received the one Michael donated, their family has just been really welcoming and incredible to us. So, one we don't really have a relationship with at all, and this other is like a bonus family. So I think one of the challenges, you can't have in your mind what you'd like the relationship to be, because you may not know the recipient, you might know them, but you don't have anything in common. Or they might not want to meet you if you're altruistic like Michael's. So there's all this stuff, so to speak, that I don't know. I had this fantasy like I might go running with this person, and that didn't happen, and it's never going to happen, and that's all okay, because back to your question about advocacy, if you do it for the right reason, no matter how it shakes out, it's how it's supposed to be. A lot of donors, I learned from this, again, terrific group, kidney donor athletes, they don't want to meet the person because they're afraid if there are complications, they might feel connected or like it's their fault or somehow emotional. And I thought, I didn't even think about that part. I just thought about maybe we'll be friends and we'll do this. And mine didn't work out that way. But Michael's, he'll tell you about it when you have him. I mean, to hear someone say the only thing we had planned was my husband's funeral, and now they've had over 5 years of amazing life together, and to have people just hug him and thank him who are strangers, it reminds you of the reason you do it. That's for sure, because it affects more than the person who receives the organ.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, I just love that. I could just let you go and keep talking here. I know from, some research I did that, whether it's donating a kidney, inspiring like your husband, 20 other people that you mentored to become donors, or, I even know that you guys, unfortunately, during one of the hurricanes a couple of years ago, lost your home, and you turned your home demolition into a fundraiser for the crisis center, that I read.
Yes, we did three. One of them was for the kidney walk, the National Kidney Walk.
Oh, nice.
We did. We let people throw bricks through the windows. We let them smash the walls, and they all went directly for donations. And And we did choose the National Kidney Foundation as one of the recipients. Yes.
That's fantastic. But what I picked up on was you have a pattern of converting like personal circumstances into community action. And I'm just curious, like, is that a way for you to cope, a philosophy that you have, or did you just happen and, kind of, just try and figure it out later?
Well, it's probably a bit of all of the above, in that if there are certainly choices we make in life. Now, the hurricane taking my office, our home, all of our belongings except for our clothes was hopefully and probably the worst thing we're ever going to go through. And I don't recommend it for anyone, but people rallied around and wanted to assist some people that we really didn't even know. And then, like Michael's kidney recipient, I mean, would just like take a car from us. Our kids have cars, take one. I mean, we didn't, but he was just right there. Just take it. And so our approach is, we may not have much at times, but if someone else can use it more, we're going to give it to them. And that's been our philosophy forever. I mean, if you come to our home and you see something, aside from a couple of things, if it seems like something someone needs, we're likely going to say, take it with you. Not because we're trying to give things away, but because if we've connected with somebody and they know people aren't going to take the things that they don't really need in that case. So being able to do the fundraising, we called it turning tragedy into at the advocacy, that into charity, into advocacy, that aspect gave us hope too. I mean, it gave us something fun to do that was for a purpose bigger than us, for something far more devastating. If somebody has a kidney issue, or the crisis center that does terrific work where they are taking the 211 calls and reaching out to people, and suicide hotlines, and unfortunately for those who experience sexual abuse, they care for them in these ways that are what people deserve to be treated so humanely. We felt like we might be suffering, but it's nothing compared to that. So let us do something positive. We also raised for University of South Florida for the Women in Leadership and Philanthropy, for a scholarship, because again, if something good can come out of something like this, then let's do it, because our choice is to sit and sulk and wait, or to take action and create a new environment. And that's what we choose to do together. And it can be challenging sometimes. It's been a long, over 600 days of being houseless. At the same time, we're nearing the end. So we think at least we did those things that were fun along the way that benefited somebody else.
No, that is amazing. And, it's so inspiring to listen to you and how you look at life. I think we have a lot in common when it comes to that. And I know that you serve on the Tampa General Hospital Patient and Family Advisory Council, and you got that seat as a donor, not a patient. So what has that experience taught you about the patient side that you couldn't have learned any other way?
Well, Tampa General Hospital's Patient and Family Advisory Council is recognized as one of the best, if not the best, in the country. And it wasn't that way when I joined years ago, and I'm not taking any credit for it. It's a terrific group of people. What I learned, though, is that by them investing in this group of volunteers, there are over 80 there might be over 100 now. And forgive me, I'm not certain on that. But when I joined, there were probably 30 or 40. And now, to the credit of everybody at Tampa General Hospital and the people on PFAC, which is what it's called, getting more people involved, I've learned that there are so many aspects of the patient experience. Now, Michael and I chaired transplant, co-chaired it for a couple of years. Now we have two people, one who is a recipient and his spouse, and they're co-chairing it beautifully and differently because they have a different perspective, but they're taking a lot of action to get people involved. So learning about the intricacies of the cancer side of it at TGH, because we have Moffitt here, which gets sometimes a lot more attention, or celebrating 50 years since the first transplant, or the neonatal, that's something that we've never been involved in. We were part of the 2-year process of a new building that's going up at Tampa General Hospital, where we went every other Thursday for 2 years to give patient input. But to think of a hospital, no matter what hospital, but it happens to be Tampa General, that said, Michael and Debbie, you're the building is designed for transplant. So it's for heart, lung, kidney, liver, everything. They said there might be days where they didn't ask us anything, but when they asked for a patient input, we would go back in 2 weeks and they would have they changed it. They listened. So part of it was learning about all the other things that are going on in a hospital. And Michael and I say there are only two types of people who check into a hospital really happy: living organ donors and people who are going to have healthy babies. But everyone else goes into a hospital and they're scared, or they're nervous, or they're at least apprehensive, because not a lot of it is elective in a hospital. So it's remembering that perspective, that telling the nurses and the techs and the environmental services people and the surgeons and the doctors that you're meeting people who aren't at their best. So thank you for giving us your best. That's important. And so I've learned and continue to learn about all the services and all the challenges the hospitals have in healthcare, but also that it's amazing that there are so many good patient outcomes, really.
Absolutely. Again, I'm just like, I've always trying to do the same, even though I was a patient, like, thanking them and showing appreciation and noticing things that they're doing that aren't impacting me, but impacting other patients. So I just think that's so important to do. But if you're ready, I got just 4 kind of fun questions for you that have nothing to do with advocacy. So what is your favorite color?
My favorite color is red. And it's part of my branding, and if people can see any of it, but that's part of the Presenting Powerfully branding, and I feel like it gives such a brightness to things, a bright red.
Well, and I didn't know that and intentionally wear a red shirt today.
Red, and I'm not, but you can at least see a lot of red behind me.
Yes. And what is your favorite band or musician?
Sarah Bareilles. Sarah Bareilles is a singer. She sings the song Brave. And if you see her live in concert, she's there with a piano, and it's spectacular.
Fantastic. And what is a place that you've always wanted to visit but never have?
Believe it or not, we haven't been to Italy. And so one of my best friends, they're going for her 35th birthday this year. And we're looking forward to going to Italy at some point and really enjoying it, because we've been a lot of other places, but we're looking forward to Italy.
Oh, fantastic. I'm sure you're going to love it. My wife and I got to go there last year for the first time and had a wonderful time. So,
wow.
And what is one thing most people do not know about you?
Something that most people don't know about me is that I thought I would want to be a cheerleader. And when I went to do cheerleading, and there's certainly nothing wrong with it at all, I really ended up just loving golf and tennis and softball and running even more so. But that I love gymnastics. I love to watch those competitions. And another thing that people don't know about me is that my mom was a musician. She played the clarinet. And so I said, oh, that's cool, one time. And when I came home from a friend's one weekend, there was this black box sitting at the table. And I said, what is that? And they said, a clarinet. And I opened it. I said, oh, you're going to start playing clarinet again. And my mom said, no, you are. And my parents thought I wanted to play clarinet. But after 2 years, Mr. Holleran teaching me, the band teacher, he said to my parents, Debbie's very athletic, isn't she? And they said, yes. He said, I think she should stick with that. So most people, to bring that all together, most people don't know that I love almost every sport and have played most of them. And I'm nearly tone deaf. So I don't hear. The good news is nothing sounds terrible to me. The bad news is if it's really good, I'm not able to tell. But that is the reason that Mr. Holleran did not want me playing the clarinet.
I love it. And the last question, and this is back to our advocacy thing, and I ask everybody this question, but if resources were no object at all, what would you like to make happen?
If resources were no object at all, I would like to travel the country and go to middle schools and high schools and even colleges and talk about the power of the connection to donation, whether that is signing up through Donate Life or considering being a living donor when they reach the age of 18, because there's so much that people think are mysterious, that people won't save you if you're a donor and they'll let you die because they want your organs. It's not true. And how all of the process works, and to encourage people to see really healthy, health-minded individuals and how we're thriving post-donation, to plant that seed much sooner and much wider, because that can make the difference in people living or dying.
I love it. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for being a guest on Advocacy at Work. How can people get in touch and learn more about what you do for a living?
Thanks, Tim. They can follow me anywhere, Debbie Lundberg, which is spelled Lundberg. I'm Debbie Lundberg Coach on TikTok. They can go to the Presenting Powerfully website, or they can reach out and email at debbie@debbielundberg.com. So you can find me pretty much anywhere. You can search the name, and I welcome any questions or anything about advocacy or living donation or the work that we get to do at Presenting Powerfully. So thank you again for having me on.
Well, thank you so much, Debbie. And don't forget, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Advocacy at Work. We launch a new podcast every Thursday, and we just started a This Week in Advocacy series. So every Sunday you will get one of those posts, and it's on Substack. So it's really easy. You don't have to go to multiple places to register and sign up. You just get it all right there. So thank you so much for tuning in to Advocacy at Work, and we will see you next week.